Okay, let's move along. These last two are my absolute, like, these are the GOAT contenders for me. I think Wilt is, kind of borderline, but in the end, he really gets overshadowed numbers wise. And I think, you know, also in terms of esteem. So we'll start with Giacomo Casanova. And I mean, should probably start with the fact that Casanova's name literally becomes synonymous with being a playboy, like worldwide. This is like the OG womanizer. This is who Andrew Tate wishes that he was 100%. Literally one of the most interesting lives I have ever read about. His book is fantastic. Highly, highly recommend looking into this guy more if you have the time. So, Casanova, let's do like a little timeline here. Casanova loses his virginity in a threesome with sisters, Ninetta and Marta Sorvanan. This is in Venice, I believe. They're like two noblemen's daughters, and they all lose their virginity this night. And he said of this event, it fixed his vocation for life. He was like, okay, like this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to have sex with noblemen's daughters forever and always. But interestingly, within a couple of years, he's kind of forced into a clerical path. He's forced into the church. This lasts for about like 1 year because he gets kicked out for having sex with somebody, Teresa Immer. And apparently he was still wearing his clerical outfit when he was having sex with this woman, and he got caught in the act. And immediately they were like, okay, you're gone forever. Please go away. So he starts his epic journey around the globe because this is what this guy did. He was just kind of an adventurer. Had a bunch of money from his family, and he was like, okay, well, I'll just spend it. Probably relevant here is who his family is. They're not really like nobles. He doesn't come from a noble family, but this is Venice, like during the Enlightenment. So not terribly an issue because his mom is a famous actress and his dad is a famous violinist. Venice, big center for the arts back then, so like very well-to-do family overall. So that's what's kind of like funding his travels here. So he goes from Venice to Naples, Constantinople, Paris, and all the while he's like detailing his life. He's sort of writing letters back home, letting people know, you know, what he's up to. And he writes about um, a menage a quatre, which is a foursome that he had with a nun in Murano. And this gets back to Venice, and it's like total fucking upheaval. Like nobody's ever heard of anything even remotely like this. Like short of like fucking like King Solomon in biblical times or like whatever the fuck is going on with like French royalty. This is like the highest level of impropriety. This is like Catholic Italian, culture. Just being absolutely fucking rocked by the idea that a nun would ever engage in something as crass as a foursome. But fucking Giacomo Casanova, he's only in his like early 20s. This is the very beginning. He's already pulling this kind of shit off. And he winds up in Paris. And the story goes that he's kind of running low on money at this point. He's already been doing this like really risque type of shit. He's getting kind of a reputation, so his family's like, okay, maybe we fucking chill out on all this, Yakubo. So Now he's faced with the first real hardship of his life, and Yakumo does something that I'm sure you do not expect. He invents the lottery. Yeah, like the lottery. He sells the idea for the first ever state lottery to the French government. And it has continued to operate every single year, basically just exactly how he originally thought it up in Paris for like the past, whatever, like 250 years almost. Even more than that, obviously small breaks during the French Revolution, during the World Wars, yada yada. I'm not even actually sure that, like, I think in World War One it was still going on. Um, but he invented the lottery just as a little, like, side adventure for a year, makes a shit ton of fucking money, and then goes right back to doing what he was doing before. Uh, there's some fun little stories in here about his sexual exploits. He had one lady who dressed in men's clothing so that she could like sneak into where he lived. This is actually kind of a big one because this is like the one who got away for him. Her name is Henrietta. It might just be Henriette. It's French. But she used to dress in men's clothing to get away from her noble family and go visit him wherever he was residing in Paris. And, in his account of his life, he says this is the one woman who broke his heart. And, the last night that she visited him, she supposedly wrote adieu in the window pane, which means goodbye in French. And, I'm sure that stoned his heart and made sure that he was just going to be a total womanizer for the rest of his life, because, that's always how it goes. As another fun little aside, he also is very famous for he gets arrested by the Spanish Inquisition when he returns to Venice. Presumably just for his, impropriety and yada yada. He gets brought up on charges for like occult practices. But it's very obvious the reason that he's getting arrested. And there's a prison in Venice, which is like right next to the palace, or at least one of the palaces in Venice. It's called the Piombi. And he is supposedly the first person to ever break out of that prison. And he did it by like like forcing his way through the roof because the roof has, this like kind of like disconnected slating, so you can like push them up and come out through the roof. And forever onward, this would be like the issue for this prison. Like it happened all the time, and it started with this guy apparently. Uh, by the end, the numbers really are not astounding. So in his in his novel account of his life, he only claims to have slept with about 130 different women. So by like modern standards, by like Wilt and Bonnie Blue and all of those people, it's not an astounding amount of volume, but for the time, for someone who isn't like a king, this was completely fucking unheard of. And beyond it all, he basically invents the idea of a playboy, of a womanizer, someone who's like so good at seducing and pleasing people sexually that his name, like I said, becomes literally synonymous with the idea. To be a playboy is to be a Casanova, someone who is like irresistible to the opposite sex. So, for that reason, and for the fact that he is so unbelievably interesting. I think absolute consensus pick for the Hall of Bang.